Okay, so the first thing I would like to present, some of the attendees, most of the attendees are people that were attendees to previous events, previous speakers, supporters, participants to research proposal we submitted for the Trustless Computing Certification Body and Seevik. But let's start with an elevator pitch, like they're doing in Silicon Valley, trying to summarize what we're trying to achieve with Trustless Computing Certification Body. So what we're doing, we're building a highly democratic, competent, resilient uh, certification body that will standardize, certify, and regulate interoperable hardware and software systems for human communications that will result in the creation of a digital sphere. So a sphere of communication where for humans, which will be self-contained and will have different characteristics from the ones that we have today, and will run on the side of the existing public sphere of communication that we know has a lot of problems. The joint goal of the certification body and these technologies and these digital spaces that will be created is to achieve radically unprecedented levels of confidentiality, integrity, democratic control of our digital lives, while at the same time ensuring legitimate lawful access. These two goals are intertwined. So one of the key intuition of our work for all these years is that we're never going to have enough security and privacy on technologies unless we also manage to have legitimate lawful access embedded there. And so this is a key intuition. Good. So let's move on. Okay. A good way to start is something that Jean-Jacques Rousseau said about more than two centuries ago. Man was born free and he is everywhere in chain. These are the opening words of The Social Contract. It was a book that was a foundation of the creation of democracy. So eventually, man, became free by aggregating themselves in liberal democracies. And the concept of the social contract was so that as a free human being, I come together with other free human beings and I make a social contract and I give some of my freedoms to this social contract. I give some of my freedom to defend myself. I give some of my freedom of speech, my freedom of privacy. I concede it to this body. And so I'm taking away some of my freedom. But by giving it to this body actually turns back more freedom of speech to me because I give back my absolute freedom of speech to them. But then this social contract will create rules that will protect for real my freedom of speech against someone that wants to intrude it. I will give away my right to shoot my neighbor or shoot anybody I want. And I will get a police system that will, with some justice, allow me to walk on the street without any fears to do that. So I am under this social contract. These rights, these different rights, are given away to a social contract and maximized. Not only that, but even rights that seem opposing, like the freedom of the privacy and the security, the public safety of a person. Through this social contract, they're maximized so that my right of privacy or freedom of speech is ultimately increasing the public safety because it increases the ability to speak out against crime, against bad behavior. And the public safety, the security that is provided to me is something that is in turn enabling my freedom of speech and civil rights. So through the social contract, there was a maximization of rights that currently in the digital sphere seem at odds, like privacy, civil liberty, and security, like with the encryption, insurance, so on and so forth. So, in fact, as we move on to the next slide, as our societies, our democracies have moved to the digital era, where more than 50% of our time is spent online. Well, in this space, there's no social contract yet. So there's no social contract that regulates these rights and obligations to create the same benefits that we had before the digital world. And so we have an area in which you have huge concentration of power on undemocratic, unaccountable entities like large social networks. And we have nation states that do everything they can to safeguard security by being able to go after the bad guys, but in doing so, they completely eliminated civil liberties online. Okay, so we are yet to build the social contract, and what we're doing is building, a social contract that anyone will be able to join. So that's a little bit what we're doing. Well, more than a little bit. So, okay, so who we are in the executive committee of our association, made with Nick Kelly and John Shama. John Shama has been working with us for 5-6 years, and he's shared his vision from the beginning, carrying several research proposals. Nick Kelly joined about a year and a half ago. He's been a fan and supporter for a long time, and now he brings a unique 360-degree expertise in cybersecurity, communication, geopolitical strategy, and so it's as a uniquely holistic capabilities. We have advisory boards which include professors from major universities, EU Commission, Europol, top banks, top companies. We have a scientific board which includes experts from the military, from a consultancy, from the best universities, and also banks, World Economic Forum. So we really recently also powered up and really attracted really valuable advisors for the scientific board. We have R&D partners that since 2015 participating in R&D initiatives to create both the certification body and initial technologies. And these include the state of Italy and state of Austria with their top secret standardization agencies, foundries, so these fabrication plants where they make chips, the CPU maker, operating system maker, the largest cybersecurity association in Europe. So we've had very wide, and even the largest European AI research institute. So we have been very successful in attracting really the leaders on each of these sectors and bringing them together to create a whole ecosystem. So as I mentioned before, one of the most critical issues to tackle, which in fact gives the name to the conference, is the fact that under the current scenario of IT world we live in, we're asked a choice to would you rather be free or safe, which is an impossible choice, right? Because if you want to just be free, but you're not safe, you can't be free because you cannot really exercise your civil rights because somebody could kill you or and so on. If you only emphasize safety without civil rights, democracy will not function and you will have all kinds of problems on the other side. So these problems need to be solved together. And in fact, in this image, you see that the question mark is not even there because this cannot be asked. It's a question that it's impossible. We've had 6 different editions already, and we started in Brussels, then in New York, then in Brazil, then in Brussels again, then we did it in Zurich, then in Berlin in 2018, and then in Geneva, then in Zurich, and now back in Geneva, because really this is the perfect place where we should be. We know the event series has been supported by many different organizations, the ITU. Many speakers came to participate, from EU and beyond, and lots from Switzerland came to participate, and so we're very thankful of this support so far. The speakers we've had are really the highest up, the most famous IT security expert, Bruce Nair, or the head of information superiority of European Defense Agency, the privacy representative of the UN, the highest official for IT security in Austria, the European data supervisor. So we had pretty much anyone could contribute this, and contributing in events which are at least 2 days, which contributed to create a document that we produced in 2018 with a position paper which is very deeply in detail, trying to motivate why we think that this certification body can achieve the goals it's setting for itself. There's another list of speakers, and actually we have many more. Okay, so this is again the goal. Let me start a second from talking about 2 different events which apparently are related. 2017, on a given day, a certain guy approaches a stadium with a football game ongoing, and he pulls up a drone and he puts leaflets on it and has this drone fly over the stadium dropping leaflets. Then he goes back it takes his pickup car again, drives an hour and a half to another stadium and does it again. So in a world where you can have biological weapons, you can have chemical weapons, so unfortunately so easily accessible, this gives you a feeling of what are the dangers which are not possible. Imagine how many terrorists now that drove through the streets in Europe or 9/11 would actually execute on facts of this sort unless we had a security apparatus to prevent it. So we live in an extremely dangerous world, which is getting more and more dangerous because the smaller and smaller groups with smaller and smaller resources can make more and more damage. And now with the AI is going to be even more problematic, with biological weapon even more. So unfortunately, that's the world we live in. So the need for having global public safety and doing a lot there is not going to decrease. It's going to just increase. So this explains a second fact, basically the fact that it came out in January 2020 that Bezos, the richest person in the world, I don't know if he's the richest, they're fighting, competing with Elon Musk every day, came out that he was hacked. He was hacked now through a very sophisticated malware that may have cost even $1 million with several different tools used by even the Saudi prince, apparently. And he was hacked, and they could access his information, his photograph, his communications, and so on and so forth. The New York Times covered right after the election of President Trump that his communications with his close associates happened through non-classified tools, because of course his associates didn't have any specific device. And so by the fact that his communications with associates happened through commercial devices like an iPhone over WhatsApp or over Signal, they could be easily intercepted by foreign nations. And so we live in a world in which basically this huge need for security and the need to have total information awareness, so make sure that secure communication are not available, even goes to the extent that not only us, but even the most rich person in the world, the most powerful person in the world, have no way to talk to their close associates in a secure way. So imagine all of us. And so this, of course, creates a huge problem for democracy, for civil freedoms, and so on. So today we're going to look at 3 big ideas and debunk 2 myths. So we're trying to put together what are the big ideas that we think that we have realized and tested over time and widened consensus on it. Number 1 is the personal freedom and public safety in cyberspace is not a zero-sum game or a either or, but it's a both or neither challenge. So we either solve them together or none will be done. And this solution of this challenge is fundamental to retain liberty and democracy and realize the best opportunities rather than the nightmare scenarios for the upcoming age of AI. We're approaching an era where AI is going to be much more very important, and who controls AI is going to be the key question, and also the security of this AI. So the second thing is that most experts believe that cybersecurity is a technical problem that will be solved via technological innovations, because up until today, it hasn't been solved. So we read about AI, we read about quantum, we read about blockchain. They all seem to be solving tomorrow or next month or next year security, but security is only getting worse. So cybersecurity of critical systems is not a technical problem, but 100% an organizational design one, not 99%, 100%. So the proper technology is a hugely influential byproduct of a right organizational design of the life cycle, supply chain, regulation, incentives, and disincentives. So it's in between organizational design and political science. And that makes a person like me, which hasn't been trained in IT, I've been trained in architecture and political science, and I've been a political science activist and so on. That's why I came to be leading all these different partners and advisors, because all of these add pocket of knowledge, but at the end, there's a whole together organizational design, which is key. The third thing is that achieving constitutionally meaningful digital liberties while preserving legitimate lawful access. So we want both. So perfect security will never exist, never existed, and doesn't exist. But what we're claiming is that we can reach much higher level of security, which are coherent with the exercise of which are meaningful for the exercise of constitutional rights. at the same time using the legitimate lawful access. So we claim that this can be achieved by applying to both of these the same extreme technical and organizational safeguards that have been used for decades for nuclear safety and electoral processes, and guided by a global governance. So basically, in the nuclear safety and electoral process, we have a safety mechanism, a certification where you don't trust anybody. You have double checks. You have organizational systems. For example, in electoral process, you have 5 people in a voting booth that make sure that no one is pulling out and throwing away your vote or putting out in other votes, right? So all of this battle tested one can be applied both to the securing of device and securing of the lawful access mechanism. So Biden recently, why we're called trustless? Biden recently in Geneva met Putin, and they asked him if he trusts him. He says, this is not about trust. This is about self-interest and verification of self-interest. Many years back, Reagan, once they made a deal with Russia, they said trust but verify. Now it's trust or verify. And in fact, when Reagan made these deals on arms control, all of these arms control, most of these arms controls turned to be nullified, with each party claiming that the other was not breaching, and nobody would be able to certify that. More recently, the Deputy National Security Advisor of Biden, the highest executive in that area, issued an executive order which for new standards and certification after the big scandals of SolarWinds. And she said, if you and I are going out to buy network management software like SolarWinds, and we want to buy the software that is most secure, we have no way of assessing which that is. She's not saying that we don't have a way which is not very certain. We have no way. So she's basically saying the current standards are really useless for critical systems. And so this is something that is shared even at the highest level. So we're going to move on a little bit to the next panel, but it's okay because the next panel was at an introduction to this. So a quick history of encryption. So in the 1940s, encryption, huge investment by the US, German, Allied, during the war, incredible advances in cryptology and cryptanalysis, trying to break others' encryption. And that fast from after the Second World War on, it became essential to geopolitical predominance. That's not something you read in history books, but recently we learned, because much of that has been classified, and so, but it became really crucial, and so that's been a crucial element of that. Then in about 1993, Biden, there was a wide development a strong encryption became widely available, and so there was a draft proposal by Biden as a first signatory to create some kind of lawful access law. So it wasn't really a law specific, but it was just stimulating a need. Concurrently, the US government proposed a Clipper chip, which is a technical backdoor that would be voluntary. But a lot of people started to fear that the kind of encryption and freedom they had on the internet, on these forums, would be taken away. And so you had people like Phil Zimmerman that released open source this very strong encryption that anyone could install in their computers and have nation state level of encryption that even a nation state couldn't crack. And so this created a huge problem for law enforcement and security and public safety. Crypto war started because privacy activists tried to stop the creation of these laws for governments. And since governments could not create mandatory backdoors, the only solution they had is to start breaking all IT and all IT standards to prevent going dark. And that has been our history since 1993, because that was the only way they could retain access to this level of encryption, making sure that they access information before it's encrypted or corrupt the systems that do the encryption or do the decryption. We come then to year 2000. There's a boom of internet. There's huge hopes that internet is going to be an instrument for freedom and democracy for all. There are meetings all over the world. In Brazil, there is a World Social Forum. At first, 150,000, after 12,000, then 150,000, then 12 million around the world. So people use the internet to connect, to create a movement. So it seemed like you could create global justice and democracy around the world. We've seen then Facebook come about, Twitter come about, concentration of power, spying, and we come to 2021, where the promise of this world has been turned on its head, where these tools instead have been used against freedom and against democracy, and nowadays are primary tool against these principles. So we're arrived to a world where it's ruled by state and non-state hackers. It's like a hacker republic, and so there's 6 trillion of cost, of cybercrime cost, every year, mostly unreported, undiscovered, and it's just mounting. So in the last year and a half or so, we've seen with COVID-19 this problem, of course, getting bigger. So we saw an acceleration of this digitization, which has also accelerated these problems of the digital sphere that we're living in. So there's this digital boom and expansion of the use of social media, use of digital means. There was no way for people to actually go and walk and meet a person to safeguard some confidentiality. They had to use these tools. And so this problem has even become bigger, and there's even more consolidation on this failed way of managing our digital sphere. So looking further, we are looking at 2020, 2030, we have catastrophic risks, with climate change, we have a biological risk, we have nuclear, we have existential risk, with AI, also biological, synthetic biology. So we're looking at this acceleration of technology, which is creating a huge risks to create very, very bad scenario. But at the same time, if we can leverage AI, especially for the best, we can create an incredible world in which we can eliminate scarcity, have a well-being, and robots would we have party like you see in the picture, and robots would just work for us, and we would just do entertainment. So this is what we're facing, and I think with that, what we're doing can have a good play in that, because it's all going to be key in the way that humanity will manage IT and AI for democracy and with sanity. So in fact, Stephen Hawking said, whereas the short-term impact of AI depends on who controls it, the long-term impact depends on whether it can be controlled at all. There's a huge market demand for technologies which are that secure. For example, high net worth individuals, there are 60 million of them. The second concern is cybersecurity, and so there's U.S. citizen fear cybercrime twice more than any other crime. So there's no thing. So even the most powerful or the richest, they have to live with it like rain and lightning, like a natural phenomenon. Nothing you can do about it. So where is the problem coming from? So literally is that these systems are way too complex to achieve, to be secure enough. They're obscure. There's no way to independently verify the hardware design, software design. There are too complex supply chains and no accountability enough in the supply chain. Great. That is the literal reason of why these systems are so insecure. But is it really a technical problem? Because if you go and look at other sectors, we solved exactly that problem in federal aviation, where only 1 out of 60 million flights results in an accident. Nuclear nations, there are 17 of them, we're still alive. And instead, there are 1.5 billion phones every year, everyone hackable by potentially by a teenager in Ukraine. The reason is everything is broken by design, by nations, to prevent grave crimes. So, as we discussed, aviation, nuclear, it's been by design, especially after 9/11. There was this huge investment in surveillance and spying and so on and so forth, and breaking everything. And even after Snowden revealed the extent of this, the majority of people voted to retain the same governments that accepted this regulation. Why? Because they were given a stark choice between safety and privacy. And so basically, given a stark choice, they would just choose for safety. I have a family with 2 kids, and if that's the choice, I'll go for safety over that. So let's move a little bit faster as we are falling a little bit behind. So there's an inadequacy of current certifications. We saw why, and they're non-complete. They don't go deep enough. They're not holistic enough, and that's by design. And so, but this is we're specifying in detail why is that. And so the current technologies are either there's not enough control of the supply chain, so there are some companies like iPhone or system provider, they control in theory everything, but then the complexity is too high. Or there's a solution provider like Signal, it's almost perfectly secure application. It's open source and so on, but it's only the applications where you don't control the device, and so they can hack the device and it's hacked. So there is a sort of invisible backdoor barrier where governments will not let any technology to go beyond there. Why? Because if it goes beyond there, they can't intercept. And so the iPhone will never get more secure. Because if it does go more secure, that the Chinese government or German government cannot independently hack in it to pursue a criminal, they will not be allowed, just like it happened in the past with the Blackberries. So what are the unique ways to achieve this level of security and privacy, both for the technology and also for the lawful access mechanism? Unique transparency. Every piece of hardware, software, which is critical, is transparent and inspectable. Not only is inspectable, but also extremely reviewed in relation to complexity by ethically aligned experts. You have this oversight system made of citizen witnesses or citizen jury in different phases of the life cycle. We're translating literally the mechanism we have in democracy to give trustlessness to us as voters into the life cycle and supply chain of IT system. And ultimately, we have certifications which are trustworthy because of their governance, which are going to verify all of this. Okay, these are the paradigms. We're going to talk about that later, and so actually in the next thing, the governance of this certification body is going to be absolutely key, because ultimately that's where the trust will go, and we aim to maximize technical proficiency, global democratic accountability, and resilience against undue pressures by nation states or not. So that's the schema right now. Initially, we don't need nation states, but if nation state joins, great. At least 8 should join, and they come in with 30%, diluting all others. So the TCCB would be working here. You would have an ecosystem of technical providers which would be resilient to state attacks. You would have devices that support this device. You would have also simple application that you can install on mainstream app stores that all refer to the same server-side infrastructure, and they jointly place this Seevik net, our new democratic global computing sphere. So let's move. So form factor is a key element, because if reaching this level of security needs a hardware device, nobody wants to carry an extra device. So you need to create something which is small enough that can fit in your custom leather wallet or in the back of your future phone. We spin off a startup 2 years ago, which was raising money to build this technology and release the initial open computing base and technologies that can be used by other providers to create other trustless computing systems. And these startups, by the way, at a fixed point, will become controlled by the Trustless Computing Certification Body by 51%. So that ultimately, it's all going to be controlled by this democratic body. So this diagram shows all the relationship on all this. I'm not going to try to explain it here, but I'm going to share this deck. We talked about AI, blockchain, and quantum, how they can be good or for bad, and so that they're going to be treated in an agnostic way and in a redundant way. So I won't have time to talk about that. Milestones. So we did so many initiatives, research initiatives. We built a POC device working with Fusion Accelerator and some partners. We created all these events, attracting a lot of expertise that help us detail these plans and all the papers that we produced. We got some funding for the startup spin-off, which enabled us to create a initial POC devices. We're talking to major phone makers to embed this in the back. We arrived top 5 in 2 major awards. We're talking to large banks in Switzerland, and so the roadmap is to launch TCCB. Now we're in the next few weeks. We're finalizing. We incorporated in Geneva 2 weeks ago, and now we're finalizing the statute and the elements. We're going to be raising 1 million for the startup spin-off. 10% will go to the association, then 6 million, and we plan to have the certification body operational and first devices available by 2023. Then on, there's going to be more apps on this environment, and the spin-off will turn on to be in control by the certification body as soon as it reaches 100 million in revenue. And then we count on the fact that at some point, you're gonna have tens of millions or more. Anyone could be able to buy a device with this level of security in the back. And then we count on this to be expanding to different computing bases and domains. So this is again of the same kind of like a summarization of our vision. This certification body relates to existing certification like Common Criteria and EIDAS, and it will present itself also through ITU and through European Union, even though these processes are quite tainted and they almost ensure that nothing good may come out of it, especially something so ambitious as our project. And so we count on becoming an international institution which has a key role in Geneva and in the world, and ultimately will bring freedom, democracy, and well-being in the age of AI, and possibly even the good looks of this lady. But I don't think we can manage that.